Welcome to the latest installment of the TreppLoan Feature of the Week video series. Today, we're going to continue on the My Portfolio discussion that we started in our previous video. We're going to highlight some of the features that allow users to benchmark property-related data by classification. So if you're logged into the TreppLoan platform, you're very familiar at this point with our homepage. In order to access a portfolio that's already been created, as we described in the previous video, you should have one created based off of that video. You could actually come into My Work where we store all of the portfolios. So I'm going to demonstrate, click on My Work. This is a central repository for a lot of different features, and we'll have subsequent feature of the week videos where we talk about individual property alerts, deal list, portfolio sharing, etc. But for today, we're going to talk about the benchmarking. So I'm going to click into this portfolio that I've previously created. In this instance, it's called the Alif Sharpston benchmarking portfolio. By simply clicking on the link, it's going to reload the page that pulls me into the portfolio. So as we talked about in the previous video, this is very similar to the list view in the TreppLoan platform with a few caveats. One of them is that the column headers with the blue dots allow for each of those fields data to be edited. So in this case, you can see that I've previously edited winding trails to have a submarket of the CBD. If I wanted to change this back to be the same submarket delineation as the rest of the properties in this portfolio, you can see me typing in real time. I could effectively come in, change this back to the original Southwest nomenclature. Once I've made that change, I can hit save, and now that'll be part of this record until I change it or somebody else changes it into the future. In this example, we're going to walk through some of the benchmarking capabilities. So when we say benchmarking, effectively what we're talking about is the ability to find like-type properties from a similarly situated geography, property type, and even classification. In this example, I'm going to highlight the fact that the user in the portfolio section has the ability to actually stratify or delineate the properties based on their interpretation of the classification. So in this example, if I wanted to look strictly at the Class A assets, I can just array this class column A to Z, and it'll actually show my 4 Class A properties at the top. Where the benchmarking comes in is by selecting the 4 Class A's, you'll see that the checkboxes are selected and now the columns are all highlighted. We have this additional feature in the portfolio section called Calculate Selected. This effectively creates a comp grid in real time using the user-defined selected properties. So in this case, if I wanted to see what the typical benchmark property in this particular submarket look like from a performance, from an appraisal value per unit, from an occupancy perspective, I simply have to select the 4 Class A's, turn on the toggle to calculate the selected, and what you see in real time is a comp grid created at the bottom of the screen. So now we actually can track across all the financial and numerical fields, the average, the median, the min, and the max across that subset of the 4 Class A properties. So in this example, you can see that the typical Class A complex in the submarket has between 307 and 318 units. This is multifamily. The typical appraised value at the sum total is around 26 million. And then the per unit valuation for the USPAP FIREA compliant fee appraisal is between 79,000 and 80,000 per unit. What's interesting though is you do get the range factor. So in this particular example, you can see the minimum occupancy, for example, in this market was 78% for the Class A's. The maximum was 95, but the measures of central tendency were somewhere between 90 and 94. Now, what's really nice about this is that if you think that 78% occupancy comparable is an outlier, you can simply deselect it from the grid, and then the comp grid will actually recalculate in real time. So it's a dynamic calculation based just on the user's selected comp. So for this example, we're going to go ahead and reselect that, have our 4 Class A's. Where this gets really impactful is now I can actually benchmark or measure the benchmark across the financial fields. So in this example, I can actually see my typical Class A multifamily property in this submarket produces effective gross income per unit at around $10,000 per unit. The expenses, including taxes, property taxes, are about $5,300 per unit, which equates to an expense ratio of around 52+%. This leaves us with an NOI of, call it 4,800 per unit, and then an in-place cap rate analysis of around somewhere between 5.7 and 5.9. So if I were using the TreppLoan platform to source new deals from an acquisition perspective, and I were underwriting potential acquisition opportunities, now I have some real quantifiable data from the marketplace that I could leverage to say, in this submarket for these similarly classed properties, my underwriting assumptions should match or be somewhat close to what the market participants are actually achieving. So in this case, 10,000 at the EGI line, 5,300 on the expense line, and call it 4,700 at the NOI would be a prudent underwriting based on the real data in the marketplace. It also gives you the cap rate information, which is really hard to come by in some markets, which gives you a real-time snapshot of the performance of those assets. What's interesting here is you can actually add additional columns. So if there were other fields that were of interest to you, you have full access to the 100+ fields that we track on each property. So you can make this list as comprehensive as you wanted to. In today's example, we kept it fairly simple, focusing on the classification as well as the financial and numerical fields related to occupancy, appraised value, and financial performance. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Feature of the Week video series, and we look forward to talking about the portfolio and portfolio management in subsequent videos. Thank you very much.